Alright, so I have some things to say about divergence since we're all on this topic, and BTC and F have both like fallen out of the sky. Divergence is really good for finding local tops and bottoms, and the time frame is very important. You can have bullish and bearish divergences on different time frames at the same time. You can be bullish divergent on a small time frame and bearish divergent on a higher time frame. And that's totally fine, and you can still trade in both of those ranges. Probably not on the same trading account, but you can still trade the same assets that way. The oscillators that I've shown before, CCI, MACD, momentum, and DPO, it's best to use all of them to identify divergence, because that gives you the more statistical likeliness that divergence is actually triggering. It's a more high probability, it's a higher probability setup when you have all of them triggering at once. You don't have to do that, it just decreases the probability. Momentum is by far the most reliable with backtesting, and it's also more reliable on higher time frames. It's just in higher time frames you'll see it less. So yeah, the second is probably MACD. That's probably the second best oscillator to use. CCI will trigger a lot. It'll show up a lot and it'll trigger a lot. And its stats by itself aren't super amazing. They're fine. It's still more than 50% probability, but it's just not the best by itself. DPO rarely will show up by itself. It'll always show up usually with another oscillator. So I wouldn't advise just leaving that one by itself, because you could use another one that has better stats than DPO. But there are times that it will show up on its own. Regarding triggers and your profit targets, the first profit target is very, very likely to be hit. The stats on hitting your first target are very high. Depending on your asset and time frame, you can get anywhere from 58 to 72% of hitting this target. The second target is not as likely, but there's no reason not to have that position, or to have that bid in. How to manage this order is enter in your long position at the first target, exit half of your position, and move your stop loss to break even. This way, if the price comes back, you still have captured in these gains and you haven't lost anything. This is the method that I typically use when I'm trading divergence. So I have my initial stop loss when I enter the long. As soon as I've hit my first profit target, I sell half of the position and move up my stop loss. Then the stop loss stays here at this break-even level to give the trade room to go. If the trend is flipped, because we're in a bearish trend, if the trend flips during this process of hitting this target, then you'll be able to, keep your trade going longer and run out as high as you want. But that's how I typically operate with divergences. Now, for this example, I use the 15-minute chart. I don't typically trade divergence on the 15-minute chart. It's got sort of poor reliability when you have a bullish divergence on the 15-minute chart can be overpowered by a bearish divergence on the hourly. So usually, if I'm looking at the 15-minute chart, it's to see where the falling knife is ending, because this trigger will usually mean that the immediate fall has stopped. But I won't usually buy in until I have a trend confirmation, because this is just saying, this trigger just means like the first fall is done. There can still be another one. So on the 15-minute chart, if I'm watching the falling knife, I'll wait for bullish divergence to trigger and then use a trend timing signal using a different method. Then I will enter into like a traditional long position or whatnot. I think that's all I had to say about that. But yeah, divergence is a fantastic method and is very, very reliable. And it's helpful when you're either in trades or if you are looking to enter trades. If you're looking to get into a long position and you see bearish divergence setting up, that will be a cue for you to either keep a tight stop loss or to not enter into the position entirely, because you have the high probability of the trade coming back on you. Right now, if I was in a short position on BTC and I see bullish divergence setting up, I'm not going to take another short position because there's a strong likelihood that price will come back. So that's how divergence can be useful in your trading method, even if you don't trade divergence. Being aware of it can save your trades. So keep that in mind, and I hope you can use this to enter it into your trading toolkit. If you have any questions, just let me know, and I can help out with anything. Thanks.